episode 136 of The Grouch and the Brainstorm. And I am Mike, and this is a slip-in episode, one we just kind of worked in there. Recently, Matt had the opportunity to go listen to someone who had just celebrated 1 year of recovery not too long ago. And so anytime we can get a story, we want to put it out there. We want to publish it. So this is Tasha speaking from the Highland Club on Tuesday, November the 11th, 2025. So Tasha, go ahead and take it away.
Hi guys, my name is Tasha. I'm a recovering alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 10th, 2024. So, yes, first I want to give thanks to my higher power, which I call Jesus Christ, for leading me to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I'll forever be grateful for. I want to thank everybody here that came, and I want to thank Mr. Ken and the Highland Club and Mr. David. So, okay, here we go. So I'm Tasha. I was born May 7th, 1981 in Odessa, Texas. I was born to my mom, Denise Norman, and my dad, Paul Norman. I have an older brother and a baby sister. So my dad worked in the oil field. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And my dad was gone every 2 weeks. He was on 2 weeks and off 2 weeks. And my home life was very, very dysfunctional. But the 2 weeks that my dad wasn't there, and it was just my mom, my brother, and my little sister, like, it was great. We laughed, we had fun. But the moment that we heard my dad's truck pull up, that was a different story. We would all go our separate ways, and we were to be seen and not heard. So, and everything had to be perfect. Growing up there, we were in Odessa, Texas till I was about 12 years old. Like I said, my dad and my uncle were in the oil field. When they were in town, it was a lot different than when they were out of town. We normally hung out at my uncle's house down the road with his best friends, and I call them my uncles. There was a bunch of them, and the 2 weeks that they were in, we normally would go through and see a lot of chaos. They would party all night, and we would be up all night, and we seen a lot of things go on. We seen fights. We seen many women come and go, and we were surrounded by alcohol, motorcycles, and pit bulls. But we seen a lot of chaos. We seen a lot of dysfunction and different things go on that children shouldn't be put through. But one thing that we never seen was drugs. Like, I don't know if it was that time period or what it was, but like none of us seen drugs. They never pulled out any drugs in front of us. We just seen the after effect of the drugs. And that actually confused us a little more later on. But, so yeah, we lived there until I was 12 years old. We seen a lot of things. We seen my uncles and stuff go through a lot. And like I said, it just seemed normal to us. Because, I mean, we didn't know what they were doing. We just thought that was normal. I don't really recall school living in Texas at all. Like, I tried to think about it and I couldn't remember nothing back from Texas. I think that was because of a lot of the chaos and stuff that was going on. I've kind of suppressed the school. But the chaos and the stuff that went on, that's like I can recall those memories, but I can't recall the school memories. So I turned about 12 years old, and my father, I think, and I'm going to say this, but this is kind of going on in my story, working the steps. I've kind of, now I can recall things about my father that I couldn't before the steps because I had a resentment against him. I blamed everything on my father, not my mom. I never looked at my mom's part. I just looked at my dad's. But working the step, I was able to look past that. And now that I look back, it was when I turned about 12 years old. It was my father. That was my mom's side of the family in Texas. Well, when I turned about 12 years old, my dad just up and moved us. And we went to his side of the family, which we moved to Houghton, Louisiana. But they ended up going to treatment. And that's when we actually found out that they were doing more than alcohol. And we moved into a little house. My grandparents owned a Gator Detail Supply for 40 years. And so when we moved down here, my dad and mom started working for them. And they ran it behind their house in a little shop. We got a house right through the woods. Our house was right through the woods, and they helped my dad get a truck, everything. They set us up. And for the first year, it was pretty good. I think that was when my dad found the rooms of AA. I don't ever recall my mom going after they came out of treatment, but my dad did. And we started school, and now I remember this part. And that's why I think that my house was a little calmer, because I was able to focus on more stuff than just the dysfunction around me. Because I found a little best friend. Her name was Erica. And we kind of had the same home life, so we could relate, and we were best friends for a long time. But so we started school. But yes, about after a year, it's like they started fighting again. And there was a lot of physical, emotional, and mental abuse in my house towards us and towards my mom. And we watched my mom go through a lot of abuse. But they started fighting again. So, to me now, I look back and I can tell where the axe fell off the handle. Like, when it started and they started fighting, either to me they were back doing what they were doing or they were fixing to. But either way, I was 13 years old, and this is a memory that I know I think kind of started leading me to some of my destruction of myself. I was sitting on the couch, and my parents were standing there fighting, like always, normal to me watching it. And sorry for my language, my dad looked at me and he said, "Ask your whore-ass mama who your daddy is, because I'm not your daddy." And so I looked at my mom, and I said, "Who's my daddy?" And she said, "Not this sorry son of a bitch." And I respected my dad. No matter how abusive he was or whatever we went through, it's like I still craved his love. I still craved his attention, But that just kind of, it confused me. Like the one that I respected, the ones that I, no matter what they went through, we still respected them. I kind of lost all respect, and I kind of lost myself. And that's when my rebellion started kicking in at 13 years old. At 13 years old, 14, I started sneaking out. I became promiscuous at 14 years old. I remember putting my mama through a lot of stuff because I would sneak out, and she would come in the room and see that I was gone, and she would literally say, "Oh my gosh, I got to go find Tasha." And she would write a note to my dad and tell him me and Tasha went to the store, because she knew what would happen. And so she would protect me. And she would come find me, and she would bring me home. So that was about 13, 14. First time I drank alcohol was at the age of 15. My little friend Erica, it was New Year's Day. And during New Year's, and her dad let us drink. And we drank a bottle of brandy. And it was nasty. By the end of the night, both of us were fighting over the toilet. So I said I didn't want to do that no more. Nope, don't want to touch that again. And I didn't. And I always said, I didn't want to be like my parents. At 16 years old, no, it was still 15. When I started high school, I wanted to join the different clubs and all this other stuff, and I was so excited. Well, my mom had asked me to get her some weed. And I didn't do drugs. But this is one thing I looked at too. But for some reason, I hung out with the people that did. Like, I always put myself around the chaos, the drama. Like, you know, like, but I didn't do them. In my head, it was okay because I wasn't touching that, you know. So my mom knew that I could get it. And I was like, okay. So I called up the dude, told him what I wanted. She told me what it was because I didn't know. And so then we went and got it. We got back home, or we were headed back home, and she looked at it and was like, oh, my God, Tasha, I gave you enough for a quarter. And I was like, okay. And she's like, this isn't a quarter, this is a dime. I said, well, I don't know. How am I supposed to know? So I called the dude, and I told him. But anyways, so I called the dude, I told him, and he said, how do you know? You don't even smoke. I said, well, it's for my mom. He said, oh, my gosh, come back. This and that. So, my mom was like, no, we cannot go back, because she didn't want my dad to know. She wanted me to get it for my dad, but she didn't want him to know that I was getting that. So I told him we'd get it tomorrow. Well, the next day I go to school, and he walks up and puts it in my purse. So all day long, and I don't smoke. I don't do none of that at this time. I'm excited about high school, you know. He put it in my purse, and me and my little friend were going around all day long, passing it back and forth, scared to death, passing it back and forth. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in fourth hour, and I look up, and there's the cops and the principal and so forth. Well, ended up, I told them so they wouldn't search her. You know, it's in my purse. Well, I got expelled. I ended up having to go to Bossier Alternative School. I was the first girl to ever go there with 18 guys. And this started another streak. Now I'm gone from Halton to Bossier. So I started meeting a new type of crowd. And at 16 years old, I got up and ran away to New Orleans. And I come back more broken and pregnant. So at 16 years old, I was pregnant. And I ended up, after having my oldest daughter, I tried to take care of her. I quit school, got a job. Then my parents had split up, and my dad went his way, and my mom went her way. And we went with my mom, of course, and she was still using, you know. But my mom did it in front of us. My dad, no. But my mom, yes. And so we kind of knew now what they were doing. But so once I had my daughter and I started working, I ended up falling out at 17 years old in Subway. And I had to be checked to the hospital. My blood pressure was up too high and all this. But it ended up that a family friend I let take my daughter to raise. And me and my daughter are super close to this day. That's always been my biggest fan, my oldest one. But from 1997, when I had my oldest, until 2006, I have 7 kids. But until 2012, actually, I would have 7 kids, and I would run from each one of them. 2 of them I gave up for adoption, a little boy and a little girl. And the others, when I would get pregnant, I would say, okay, I'm going to do this, and we're going to have a family, and I'm actually going to, you know, stick this through. But once I had them, one, I stayed till she was 4, but like it would get hard or something, and Tasha would just jet. I'd just run. And I would just, you know, it was my self-centeredness, my not wanting to deal with issues, and everything I had been taught, you know, growing up, seeing the women that I see, everything that I had seen, I can recall now that I started doing what they were doing. You know, my promiscuous, when it started, I mean, I have watched a lot of stuff go on and how women handled themselves, and that's how I thought I was supposed to. But, yes, so from 1997 till we're going to go back to 2006, I would have 4 children. 2 of them I put up for adoption, and the other 2 I left one when she was 4, and my oldest. The one I left when she was 4, the one thing I did do good is I actually didn't just leave her. I had to sign over a power of attorney to her father because I went and joined National Guard Army. I wanted to do something different. Well, while I was there, I started getting served papers that he was trying to take my daughter. And so when I come back, we ended up going to court. And there I learned to drink. I was in Fort Bliss, Texas. And on the weekends, we got to go out to the city and in El Paso, Texas. So we would end up getting hotel rooms. And, I learned how to drink there. So I come back drinking more. But so we went to court, and I ended up signing over rights to him. It's just like I come back to the atmosphere that I was in, and like, I don't know what it was, if it was my self-worth or if it was just my self-centeredness and all about Tasha. I didn't want to deal with somebody else. But either way, I signed over rights to her. But I did join National Guard Army. But I always kept a job. I always worked. I had vehicles, but I was a partier downtown. My brother was a bartender down there. I bartended all the way up until 2006. And it was the first time I would have a blackout. And I went to the bar. I woke up the next day not knowing where I was at, who I was with, and it scared me. And so from there, I went to Pines Treatment Center. And I put myself in Pines, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I wanted to learn everything. Because once I had that blackout, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm them, And I did. I made it through Pines Treatment Center. And after I got out of Pines Treatment Center, I went to a sober living house called the Christopher House. And me and Kim was there. I did good there, but I came home one day to everybody in the house being messed up. And was like, hey, you want to go downtown with us? And I got scared as crap and ran out and was like, oh my God. And so, that house got shut down. But from there, I went to a program. It wasn't this program. But I did start learning about programs and the steps and so forth. So the seed was planted in my head. But 3 months into my recovery, I got pregnant by somebody who had 7 years. And so when I told him, he didn't really deny it, but he just didn't really care. But I had made up my mind, I'm gonna try this with no man. Like, I'm gonna try this. And I stayed in the program a little bit, the program I was in, and I met somebody else who later became my husband. And he signed the birth certificate when my daughter was born. I tried to get a hold of the biological father, and he would hang up on me when I was in the hospital right after I had her. And so me and him stayed together. Like I said, he signed the birth certificate, and I had 2 more kids. We drank here and there, but he did a little more, but I didn't. We were together all the way up, and we had 2 more kids. So we had 3 kids, and I was there until my daughters were 7 and 6, and my son was 1 year old. I was going to Bipsy. I was in National Guard. I was running my grandparents' company. I had a trailer on land. I had 2 cars. On the outside, it looked great. Looked perfect. But me and him just didn't work. We didn't work, and I started getting very overwhelmed because of everything I was doing. Well, it was about 2013 that self-centered Tasha set back in. And there I went. I jetted out. And I left him the house, left him the car, left him everything because he didn't know nobody here. And he worked for my grandparents. I left all that. And this is how I know I have alcoholic tendencies, even when I wasn't. Because I chose to go from there to live with a guy in a hotel Economy Inn off of East Texas, and I would be there for the next 2.5 years, 3 years. I would talk to my kids here and there, but, okay, wait, I gotta skip back. So when I started, this is what started my journey of addiction. When I had my son, the epidural got put in my back, and it went out my back and come back, and he put it back in, and it almost paralyzed me. And so they sent me to the spine clinic off of Line Avenue, and they put me on 60 Norco-10 every 7 days and 60 Sunwoods every 15 days. And I was in heaven. That was it for me. Like, I fell in love, and that started my journey. And so, going back, okay, so I'm living at this guy's house in Economy Inn. I'm getting my pills, whatever. He's trying to sell them. He teaches me how to do all that. Okay, so I'm learning how to hustle pills and all this. And so, but we lived by Uncle Frank's, a little bar, and we would go to all the little bars every night. Every night. He wouldn't let me work. He was a roofer. So that's what we did. Well, one time, so he taught me into getting on Suboxone. Stopping getting off of and in his mind, I know now, he was thinking money. But so I went from the Lortabs to Suboxone, and yes, and that was one of the worst things ever. So, but yes, after I got on Suboxone, the next thing was I was withdrawing one day because he sold most of my pills, and so I was withdrawing one day, and somebody came in and say, "Hey, I got something that can help you," and I was like, "Okay," and they gave it to me, and it was meth. And that took the withdrawals away like that. So that started that road. Now, ended up I was with him. It was very toxic. It was very abusive. Got put in the hospital a bunch of times. But we split up. Well, when we split up, the thing is I stopped talking to my family, stopped talking to everybody with his. So when that occurred, there I was. No family, no friends, because he was so controlling. So there I was, homeless in Shreveport and Bossier, not talking to my family, not talking to my kids, and now I'm meth addict. So I went to the streets of Shreveport and Bossier, and I didn't know nobody. When we did do dope or meth, when he did get it, I had to, if it was a guy giving it to us, I had to look down. I mean, like I said, he was abusive. He was everything. So I was put into the world, but not into the world. So then I got thrown to the world. And I was green as green could be. And here I was. And the way I am happy-go-lucky, like I still was like that. That wasn't good for the street. Like, it was not good. And so when I went out to the street, that's when I really started seeing a lot of the dysfunction and stuff that I had seen growing up, but it was completely different nowadays. Like, it wasn't like their dysfunction. My daily routine was finding my drug of choice, finding somewhere to lay my head, a shower, and food. And that was a repeated cycle every day. And that involved men and a lot of other things, you know. But when I went to the street, like I said, I was green. I seen a lot of stuff, dealt with a lot of stuff. Somebody here tonight was the only person he did introduce me to, and she was older. And she kind of introduced me to some older ones out there. And the two gentlemen, they were sitting there, and I'll never forget, they looked at me and they said, "The streets are going to eat her alive. Going to eat her alive. We got to do something." And they did. They took me under their wing, and I made it. But, okay, so from there, after the street, that was my daily routine. Like I said, I went through a lot out there. But in 2018, yes, I finally got tired. I was in True City. I went to jail, started going back and forth to jail too, yeah. Never had been to jail until hit the street. Bam, there it was. That was just a routine for me every few months. So in 2018, I really was tired. Went to jail, and a lady said I could come stay at her house, and I did. We got in a fight, but I had asked. I started walking from Tree City to my grandparents, and I was ready to go to treatment. I asked a man for a ride, and he picked up some of his workers or so forth. It ended up, they said they had to do a few things before they dropped me off to my grandparents. And I was going to walk in and not seen them for years and tell them, please help me. And, before they dropped me off, I had said we had to go to Hallsville, Texas, and drop one of the workers off. When we were there, I asked for some headache medicine, and he gave me a couple pills, and he gave me a cherry Dr. Pepper, and I drank it. And I laid down. I looked at the clock. It was 2:30. When I had got up, we were still in Hallsville, and we were at a store, and it was 7:30 at night. And anyway, so once we started leaving, driving down the road, I started feeling stuff. And I figured out what they had done to me. So I was asking for the phone, and I got on the phone, and I was kind of co-talking to a lady who was like my mom. They heard me. And they ended up getting the phone. They ended up turning up their radio, and I'll never forget it. And they were talking about how they're going to take me to Halton and kill me. And I'm sitting in the back seat, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I knew of God, but I didn't really have a relationship with him, but it was the first time I truly called out to him and was like, or my higher power, Jesus Christ. I was like, is this it? So I felt a peace come over me, and he told me just to be still. Before the end of it, we were on the interstate, and his truck started breaking down, and he got off the interstate. And he got to the other road to turn, and I was able to jump out of the car. And I ran up to a man and said I needed help, and he let me in his car. And by the end of it, I had went to the emergency room and found out everything that had happened to me. But I went back to the street, but it was like 2 weeks later I put myself in Teen Challenge. And so there is actually when I started, is when I found my higher power. They took us to the chapel every day, and that's where I learned to pray. And my first prayer was, Lord, please bring back my sanity. Because on the street, it was like it put so much in my mind that I just wanted to be able to think. I couldn't even do anything. I couldn't make choices because I was analyzing everything that was going on around me. Like I wanted to figure out stuff for some reason. So anyways, I learned how to pray. My mind started clearing. And I felt love for the first time ever from my higher power. I felt forgiveness. And it started my relationship with my higher power. So anyways, I ended up from there going back to the street though. I did. After 7 weeks, I left. I used on the street, but I learned how to pray. And I prayed 4 prayers. I prayed for God to get me sober and keep me sober. I prayed for him to mend the relationship between me and him. I prayed for him to mend the relationship between me and my kids. And I prayed for him to, I wanted to help other women off these streets. I said specifically Bossier and Shreveport streets. And it wasn't a little while later, I was feeling hopeless. I had that, the only hope that I had in me was this praying thing that I was doing. But other than that, I was hopeless. I felt like I had nobody, even when people were around. I didn't know who I was at all. I just went with emotions every day. Well, I ended up, one day I was washing dishes at a friend's house, and he said, oh my gosh, I'm looking at you but not looking at you. And when I looked up, I said, oh my God, is that my daughter? I had met a little girl on the street, and I told her, you look like my daughter's age, and told her my daughter's name. And she said, yeah, your daughter was my friend. Well, it ended up my daughter turned 18 and got a hold of her because she had heard she knew me. And she said, I heard you know my mom. Well, it ended up she talked to that little girl and found out where I was. And so she walked in there, and she sat me down. She said, sit down. And there was 4 of us in there. 3 of us are sober now and talking to our kids. But my daughter looked at me and said, are you ready to get right? And I told her, you're telling me I hadn't seen you since you were 4 years old. Oh, she said, are you ready to get right? Me and Christian Michael want a relationship with you. I said, you're telling me I hadn't seen you since you were 4, and the son I gave up for adoption want a relationship with me. She said, yes, just get right, please. And don't go ghost. So by the end of that, a few days later, I got a message from my son. I met my son. I talked to my oldest daughter. I ended up talking to the stepmom's kids of my youngest 3. And it all happened at once. And I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something. So I ended up going, and this is when my journey really started. And I got into the rooms and I learned some stuff. In 2020, I went to CADA. I put myself in CADA. I said, I'm done. And in CADA, after CADA, I got out. I went to a sober living house here, Oxford. And in Oxford, my sponsor picked me up from CADA, and when we pulled up to the Oxford house, a guy came outside from next door and was like, hey, Tasha, come smoke. So I was like, I can't be here. So I got on a bus, and I went to Fort Worth, Texas. And I went to, Azle, Texas. And I went to a discipleship for 3 months, and I felt right then I was not ready to come home. So I went to Oxford, and that's when I started the programs. And I started learning that the programs show ways to cope with stuff. And I stayed in Oxford for 6 months. But I ended up coming home, and from 2020 to 2024, I would have some sober time, and then there would be times of relapses. But during that 2020, from that time, one time when I had a little bit of time, I was in a program working the steps. I had a sponsor, was going to meetings. Some good stuff started happening. I watched promises start happening. I became a counselor. I got married. Remember, I had one other daughter that I gave up for adoption. A night right before, like tonight, when I was going to give my story, my Facebook Messenger went off, and it was a little girl, and she said, I think you're my friend's mom. I was like, oh my God, here we go again. Okay, is this a joke? And on the bottom of my Facebook page, it says, Sydney Rosemary, in my heart, always in my mind, never forgotten. And she said she's seen that, and she sent me a picture, and it was me holding my daughter that I gave up for adoption. And I said, oh my gosh. By the end of the night, I was talking to my daughter, and I was talking to her mom. And to this day, I talk to all my kids, except my youngest 3. During 2020, I did end up going to court for them. They watched me fight for them for 3.5 years. Went to counseling, did everything they asked me to do, parenting class, everything. And I was big into my program. Well, it ended with them choosing not to see me. It's okay. I'm all right. And so, from 2020 to 2024, I want to say that I look back now, and I know that I wasn't fully surrendered. I was self-centered. I was Miss Know-It-All. And I would listen to suggestions, but I wouldn't take them all unless I wanted to. And I didn't work a thorough steps. I thoroughly did not work my steps. I just ran through them. Just a checkbox. Everything was a checkbox for me. Everything. And I was good at checking them. So, like I said, I would relapse. I would have time, and I would relapse. But I wanted to be sober. I really did not realize that I had not given up something. And so, but the one I married, it was very toxic. And I learned that now, the way I see things now, that I've worked the steps for, I chose that unhealthy relationship. In like 3 years of sobriety. So for me, that's like, I look back and I'm like, okay, that should have showed me something right there that I was doing wrong. Because my mind wasn't healthy. So, but within that, there was a lot of abuse, a lot of It was just very toxic. In 2024, I would go through one of the hardest times in my life. During the 2020, another good thing is my mother moved in with me. And she was on oxygen. And I was able to take care of my mom. And we grew close. She met a lot of my friends and grew close to them. Well, and my ex-husband, we had split up. And he moved out. We started divorce papers and everything. But we were back and forth, but never lived together. Well, in 2024, January 14th, I'll never forget it. I was trying to stay sober, and he, when that would occur, he would end up starting a fight with me, getting violent, leave, and come back a couple hours later. Well, that occurred, and it was the worst our fight that had ever took place with us. So he left, and I was laying in my bed crying. In the back room was my mom. And I didn't think about that. My phone rang, and it was one of my friends, and she said, I'm on my way. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, your mom just called me, and she's crying. She's upset. And she said that she would lose her daughter before she would lose her life. Well, so after that, I was like, oh, my God, my mom. I ran back there. But talking to her, I promised that I would not take him back, and I didn't. And 5 months before that, when I was doing really good, my mom had watched me go to River Park. And one day she ended up going with me. And to say another good thing, I watched my mom find her higher power 5 months before that. And I watched her start changing. And she seen that from the good I was doing. So I have never been back with my ex-husband. And since that day, January 14th. Well, 7 days later, January 21st, I come home to walk in after church. To find my mom passed away. But we had to go to the hospital. But guess what? 4 of my recovery friends. No, 3 from AA showed up for me. They were in the room when they told me. And we went here. This is where they brought me. And right in there, I had a meeting right after my mom passed away. Well, so with that being said, I lost my house, I lost my mom, I lost my marriage, I lost everything in 1 month. I stayed sober for a little while, but then I ended up going back out. I was walking in grief and did not know what that felt like. And that's a thing of itself. So fast forward to November 9th, 2024. I ended up just somehow wanting to drink. And I bought a little Fireball after I'd been sober for some time. And I got an apartment and was doing good. Going to meetings. I just went through Tri-State. And I drank that. I can't recall what it tasted like or anything. But I immediately wanted the drug of my choice. Immediately. Normally, I would get drunk to where I wanted to get sober and want it. But this time, I wanted it. I did a little line and was like, get the fuck out. I don't even know. Lord, forgive me. Y'all forgive me. And I ended up calling my best friend who's in recovery here. And she came over and she said, you got to be done. Let's go. And she got me back into the rooms. But November 9th showed me that I am an alcoholic. Because I didn't even taste it. I wanted more. I wanted more of something. And so I remember what they said. And from that point on, I started back in my normal routines of my meetings here. It took me a little while. But I said, you know what? I finally surrendered that I was an alcoholic. And it was like a freeing. And that's when I sat at Bel Air and said, it's time to give this a shot. I've done a lot of other things. Let me try this. Just let me try this. And I did. And I asked for my sponsor. And I said, I'm going to start doing whatever she says. And from that point on, it doesn't matter. If I call her and I tell her something, she tells me what to do, I do it. I've been in some uncomfortable situations because I codependently did something, and she told me, this is what you're going to do. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to make somebody mad, but I did it. And guess what? It worked out great. Perfect. And everything worked out great. So we started the steps, and like I said, I surrendered. I gave everything over to God. He's leading me into everything that's going on in my life. He put me right back in the recovery field. I'm work at a treatment center. I'm working with women. Yep. Then the resentments. I never knew I had such a resentment for my father. And it feels so good to have that resentment gone. And I get to see my dad for the man that he was. Like, he gave me my work ethic. He gave me, he didn't even want to do this stuff around us. You know what I mean? Like, I see him, we sat and talked in my sponsor's office, and I was like, wow, blown away just by doing these steps and actually thoroughly, because I took hours doing them. I sit at my work at night. I work 11 to 7, and it's boring sometimes. They're asleep. So I thoroughly do my work, and it shows. When I go sit down with her and we do it, I'm like, and sometimes it's not right then, it's the next day. But I'm like, oh my gosh, and just stuff starts showing. And I'm like, and then I start feeling freer. Well, so the resentments, so she's walked me through the steps. I'm on step 10. And today I'm actually happier. Just in the last 2 weeks, I'm happier. I'm happy being by myself. I moved in with my friend, and we're doing great. We may not be the richest people in the world, but guess what? Like I told her, we're making it, And I go to my meetings, and I'm falling in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, and I never thought I would. I was just like, nope. Yeah. I was like, nope, but I'm falling in love with it. And this time, I think it was because I was willing. I seen the people in a different light. I was told that I come in looking mean and mad, and I looked back today and I was like, I did. They didn't talk to me because I didn't talk to them. I sat there looking awkward and weird, and you know what I mean? So who's going to talk to me? So yes. So now I feel different about the people, and I'm gaining so many friendships, and I already have great friends, and I'm gaining more friends. And today, it's like I'm okay with being in our apartment and not having somebody there. Today, I'm okay with myself. Today, I know I have ways of coping. My meetings I go to, I hear things. I pray before I go. I pray, or I try most time. Lord, forgive me. Most time I pray, and I want to hear. My sponsor is real big on me putting up my phone and listening. And when I started doing that, I started hearing some good stuff. Before, it's like my ears, there was a blockage. I didn't fully hear what somebody was saying. But when I put up that phone and I prayed, I hear what somebody's saying. I'm like, oh, and it does stuff for me. So my meetings, I make sure to listen to. I join into service work now. I helped out at Tri-State. I do things like that. And it's not that it only feels good, but it puts me a part of. That's all I wanted in AA, was to be a part of. I never felt a part of. But this time I do. That's because I'm not looking at it in a negative way. And helping in service works helps you meet people outside of your normal meetings. And I'm doing service work. I hold a meeting with 3 other people at Kate on Wednesdays. And it's so awesome. It's a beautiful thing for me. I love that. Just being able to talk to ones where I was at. And like I said, we're doing the steps. I call my sponsor every day. Every day. I would look forward to it. It's an accomplishment for me because I didn't do that before. And I love my sponsor. When she will call me out in the middle of something, I'll just be speaking and she will show me something. She's like, do you know what you're doing? Do you see what you're doing? And so I have to stop, and then I have to be like, okay, that's what I'm doing. Normally it is not taking one day at a time, not taking one moment, future tripping. But she does, and then she'll show me. And then, she will show me what I'm doing. And then she normally makes a joke. When I call her about a problem, she's really good at showing me, this is what we do. We talk about the situation, what's your part in it, and what's the solution? What are we going to do? And that's what I do. I had an issue at work. I got upset. I called her. I wanted the world to stop right then, and I did. I went straight out on the porch, and I called her. I didn't care what was going on around me. I didn't want to react in a negative way. I wanted to react in the right way, and I don't know how to react nowadays. So I called her, and we talked about it, and she showed me my part, and I did what she said, and it came out great. It turned out really good. But by the end of it, we were laughing, and she had me pray for that person. She wanted to hear it. Prosperity, wealth, and health. And so I had to call out, and I prayed with her right then. And I do it today. If I start thinking negative about somebody, prosperity, wealth, and health, and that's that. And prosperity, wealth, and health. And I do that. If I start thinking negative, that's what I'm going to do. Because and then it just becomes a habit. If I start feeling negative about somebody, I'm fixing to start praying for them right then. So, but she taught me that. And like I said, by the end of our calls, when we're talking about something, she ends it with a joke. Because we just walked through a bunch of serious stuff. So let's bring it down. And she ends with a joke. And we laugh. And then, I'm calm about it. And I'm able to ponder and think about what she just told me. And I take her suggestions. I don't play with that no more. So, but my life is so much better today. Like I said, I have a relationship with all my kids. My younger 3, that's okay. One day. I did in my steps. I'm doing a living amends for them is what I'm doing. So that way if they do, I'm good. And so, and my life is just better today. I'm happier. I feel freer. I love myself.
Thank you, Tasha. What a great story, and congratulations on hitting that milestone of 1 year. I know the first year is always hard. And that's going to be it for this episode. Of course, an audio-only episode. Stay tuned. We'll have a video episode released on Sunday, as always. So, from Reno, Nevada, and Bossier City, Louisiana, thanks again. This is the Grouch and the Brainstorm.